focus on be the video series, where I spend about 20 or so minutes, so in this case it might be a little more, because we're not just playing a single game here. We're going to be going through every single game in the V-Rally series from 1997 to 2000. Why? I don't know, because I find it fascinating just how similar and yet how different they are, with the fact that it's actually supposed to be the same game but on different systems, and also talk about V-Rally as a series as a whole, or at least my impressions of it from the early days of the series. Of course, there are some newer ones. There was one on the PS2. There was also like a proper, you know, more modern one from like 2018, V-Rally 4, which wasn't actually made by the same people. This handling model might look familiar to you if you're more of a Need for Speed guy, because, well, these guys also made Eden Games, or well, I think they were Eden Studios at first. They made Need for Speed Porsche Unleashed on PS1. You can kind of tell because the way the cars drive and the way the game looks. These guys were freaking ahead of their time. Did you know that I'm not doing it right now, but this game has 16:9 support? A PS1 game released in 1997. What the fuck was that? Has 16:9 support, and like, oh yeah, okay, it stretches the HUD, but still, it's really cool that they did that, and it's on every version too, even the N64 version. So anyway, as you can see, this is just a typical rally game, except it's not actually a typical rally game. Well, it became atypical, because back then, I noticed something. Racing games are much more focused on just having, you know, a normal sort of race competition, including rally games. Because today, when you think of a rally game, you think more so in the line of obviously Dirt, you know, the Codemaster stuff, or WRC, where you're just driving with no opponents, you're just kind of on the track doing a time trial. And here, yes, V-Rally, the original, does have a time trial mode, but that's the only way to play the game with no opponents. Every other game mode involves having actual opponents on the track. Although, as you just saw, it doesn't necessarily necessitate the presence of laps, because yes, and we'll get into that, there are multiple laps for some of the tracks. Not necessarily that one, as you just saw. And also, I kind of want to let you listen to the soundtrack real quick, because it's odd, because for one, it exists, which is not super common for a lot of rally games. And actually, I think what's interesting is that the V-Rally games were kind of inconsistent when it came to that. For example, the N64 one, as we're going to hear a little bit later, doesn't have any music. Listen to this.
3, 2, 1, go!
I absolutely love low-budget rock like this, because you can tell the production isn't like super hi-fi, but it's actually really good, like the actual sound of everything. You know, I really do love the arrangements, the composition. Okay, whatever, let's not talk about the music too much. But you know what else I gotta commend this game for, and all the sequels? Well, maybe not one of them, you'll see. It's the fact that even though this is one of those, it's part of the generation of PlayStation racing games that defaults to this camera. Now, for your viewing pleasure, I'm obviously using this camera, but it still runs pretty good. Like, seriously, I think Eden games are kind of underrated when it comes to their level of optimization on console, when it comes to their rally games. Codemasters gets a lot of the credit, because they deserve it. In fact, I'm going to be talking about a Codemasters game later. But Eden Studios, I mean, look at this shit. The game's running smooth as hell, and this is much earlier. This was like 3 years before Colin McRae Rally 2.0, which was kind of a absolutely insane game for the system, right? Absolute powerhouse of a game. But this game doesn't look too bad either. And the car handling, it's weird, because I initially had a very major problem with it. I used to get controlled like shit, but honestly, now that I'm actually playing it, like, again, after just like a few days, you know what? It's actually really tight. It's super solid. It's very arcade-like, because this is definitely much more of an arcade racer. This was before, I want to say this was before rally games took themselves quite as seriously, in a way. Because, I mean, like, what else did you have? Like, Top Gear Rally, MRC, I mean, they're both very arcade-style games. And we're just done with this lap. Yeah, I know I finished first. And I think what we're gonna do now is we're just gonna do a little fade, a little wipe here, because the game just has that as a thing. And we're gonna switch over to the N64 version.
3, 2, 1, go!
Released in 1998, despite the fact that it's called, you know, 99 edition. They would always do that back then. In fact, they still do that a lot, actually, when it comes to naming. But anyway, this is V-Rally 99 edition, released in 1988 for the N64, as you can see. And right off the bat, one thing we got to notice is, well, actually, most importantly, look, there's no opponents. Even though I'm playing in the championship mode. That's because this was actually the first V-Rally game to implement a traditional rally mode in the championship setting, so to speak. There is a V-Rally mode, as it's called. That's what they've decided to retroactively name their race mode, where you have multiple opponents. Another thing you're going to notice is despite running on exponentially more powerful hardware, this game runs like complete donkey dick, which is, I guess I can't say it's completely unexpected for the N64, because the N64 was so fucking weird. It was such a wild card, because there are some games that are like PC quality in terms of their performance, like Revolt, Hot Wheels Turbo Racing, I don't know, even something like Top Gear Rally, I guess. Mario 64 runs okay. Rayman 2 runs great. Then you have stuff like this, where in the default view, by the way, this is the default view. They were ballsy. They were like, yes, we're gonna make the default view the exterior one. It runs like ass. Like, seriously, you have to use this. Oh, there you go. And even then, it's not great, especially at nighttime. This game performs absolutely terribly at nighttime. Admittedly, the nighttime effect is quite good. Like, the headlights genuinely look like they're properly lighting things up in a way that looks smooth and natural, instead of it kind of being, you know how like PS1 when they do headlights, it would just be like in these blocks, these chunks of light? That's not the case here, so I gotta give them that. But my god, something else I like is that when you're playing this version, the smoothness of the textures kind of clashes with the obviously pixel art pedestrians, which I find really interesting, actually, to spectators, because typically they would just use photos, right? But here, they actually have these stylized, cartoon-like drawings of people, which I always found really cool. Also, I did not do very well on this event, although it might have gone back to the hard difficulty. See, the last time I played this game, I was on hard mode, and I resumed a previous championship I had, so maybe, even though I went to the settings and set it to easy, maybe it set it back to hard? I'm not sure. But anyway, this is another event that we're doing, and this one, you noticed something about the map, didn't you? That it's actually looped. I'm gonna have to play like this on it. No. It's more important that the video looks good, damn it, even though it's gonna look kind of bad anyway. Well, actually, no. This level runs fine because there's a ton of fog. That's not exclusive to the N64. It's just that's this particular level's weather condition. So I think it can get away with it. But yeah, you're probably thinking, wait, hold on, laps? That's right. You can kind of see the roots of the fact that, well, okay, to be fair though, even the first game, which only had the regular races, still had straight point-to-point races and laps as well. And this is just kind of a consequence of that. I guess they couldn't be bothered to make different tracks that are exclusive to the solo rally mode, so instead they just have you looping around. So this is like a rally game, a typical rally game, where you also have laps. And just wait until we get to the final game of today's video, because it's gonna be weird. You have no idea how V-Rally, well, unless you've played it, you have no idea how V-Rally Expert Edition, as it's called, on the Dreamcast, handles its loops. It's really odd. But regardless, funnily enough, despite the flaws of this version, I've actually played it probably the most. I think it's just because I'm an absolute sucker. I'm just totally glued to the N64 look. Even though it's actually very easy to approximate it using emulation to get, like, you can really easily make a PS1 game look like an N64 game nowadays. You just enable texture filtering, perspective correction, disable dithering, and I mean, that's pretty much what I was doing. Oh no, I didn't enable texture filtering because I respect myself too much. Even though I actually had it on for quite a few of my videos, but that's, I don't know. I feel like it depends on the game's art style. Another problem here, though, is the fact that, well, when you have laps on these tracks that actually already feel like a pretty decent length for just a standalone experience, you get this problem where it lasts just a little bit too long. I mean, I think I'm going to try and actually get to the end of this event before we switch over to V-Rally 2 for the PS1, and then we finally finish it off with V-Rally. If you're wondering why I'm not doing the PC versions, it's because I just cannot be bothered to try and get those working on modern Windows. I know it's possible. Anything's possible, right? You can run basically any game with the right patches and stuff and fan launchers and shit like that. I just don't want to. And again, I've always found console versions of games more interesting because of their inherent limitations and advantages, strengths and weaknesses versus different things. It makes it more fun. Because with PC, it's like, well, you're just getting the best experience, which is great if you're looking for the best experience. But I'm not looking for the best experience. I'm looking for, I don't know, one with a particular set of compromises, I guess. Like this one, for example. This has slightly, definitely better looking car models, smoother textures, but the performance, it's actually not as bad as it was in the previous stage, especially again if I switch over to what the fuck, the physics are also noticeably different. You've probably taken note of that. The fact that the cars don't have that snap that they kind of do, where they kind of reach their maximum turn radius really quickly. Here, things feel a little bit more natural, although I still recommend you... Hold on. I still think I would recommend you use this camera angle, honestly, if only for just the improved performance, because, man, this kind of shit is not fun. Oh my god, this takes so fucking long. You know what? I'm just going to get to the end of this lap, because I really want to move on to the next game, well, really the next version here. So, let's just do a quick little spin around. I forgot what the fucking handbrake button was. Whatever. I'm going to see you guys with V-Rally 2 for the PS1.
3, 2, 1, go!
Released in 1999, once again for the PS1, and I just realized I should probably go ahead and turn this down. Don't know why it took me so long, but anyway. It just wasn't that loud or annoying. So anyway, this is V-Rally 2, 99... it's called Championship Edition 2. That's what it says in the file name. It's V-Rally Championship Edition 2. I'm expecting it to be fucking Championship Edition DX. Can you hear that music? Jesus, who would have thought that fucking Rally could be so metal? I mean, Rally is one of the most metal things out there anyway. And this game was like, yeah, fuck it, let's put some industrial metal over that shit. And it's just so over the top. I absolutely adore it. That's the thing about V-Rally. I feel like this really encapsulates its identity versus that of Colin McRae at this point. The fact that it almost made sense that EA tried to sell it as Need for Speed. In reality, they did that because more people knew of Need for Speed, so it increased sales. And it did sell very well. But at the same time, I think it kind of makes sense, because Need for Speed, at this point in time, was known for its cool electronic and metal music. Really, I mean, especially Need for Speed 2. Holy shit, some of the stuff on that. Really sucks that the person who composed a lot of that music is now not with us, but that's a different matter. But anyway, so I feel like it almost fits, because there's a lot of Need for Speed DNA here, even though it's not made by the same people. But it's just like the fact that you have, more than one car on the track, which was very... again, at this point in rally games, it wasn't completely unheard of. Colin McRae, at this point, he was already around, just fucking changing the world when it came to how he was going to do racing. It wasn't him specifically, Codemasters, right? They were the guys who just went ahead and took the license and made something absolutely insane out of it, right? Wasn't this the one where you could also change how many laps are in the race? But anyway, and so seeing this game it's almost like a retort to the original, because this was before Colin McRae Rally 2. But I gotta say, from a technical standpoint, it's almost just as impressive. It runs super smooth, even with multiple cars on screen. It looks fantastic. The music is, as you can hear, absolutely awesome as well. And the controls are greatly improved. I don't know, it's really interesting how you get used to it. You get used to it so easily, because at first I absolutely despised these controls, but now look at this, I'm fucking breezing through, right? Not really struggling with any one particular aspect of the handling model. Any kind of corner or whatever the game decides to throw my way, I'm just kind of like, yeah, come and get them. I mean, this particular track is quite simple, sure. Oh, I actually haven't talked about the game structure all that much, because even though this right here, I believe, yeah, this is actually a more linear game, as in you can only really play the maps in the order that they've given it to you. But the previous V-Rallies, you know, the original on PS1 and the N64 game as well, they both let you pick whatever, and it all counts towards your progression. It's basically open-ended, and you also have basically an unlimited number of attempts, but you have to commit though. As in, if you're on like the second special stage of a particular area, you can't back out. If you do, you got to do the whole thing over again. So it's not like you're disqualified or anything. It's a very lenient approach, but it still requires commitment, right? So you can't just, oh, well, that race didn't go so well, let me do it again. That's just not a thing. That's not happening. And with this game especially, this is where you can really start to see that Need for Speed Porsche Unleashed DNA coming through, right? And, you know, interestingly enough, though, I still do think overall that Need for Speed Porsche Unleashed is eating games' strongest showing on the platform, on the PS1. It looks and sounds even better than this. Well, sounds is subjective, but it looks even better. It runs pretty much the same, as in it runs quite well. And what else about it? Well, I mean, the game structure has a lot of content. Obviously, it's a little bit different. It has, like, you know, you buying cars and stuff. It's a very different game because it was modeled after Need for Speed sort of style that they had going on at the time. But still, this is a fantastic rally game. And, you know, maybe it's just because I'm so used to Colin McRae that everything different feels like a breath of fresh air. But I'm almost starting to prefer this. No, of course, I think if you're more of a pure rally guy, you're still going to consider Colin McRae Rally 2.0 to be the better overall game, regardless of what system you're playing on. Even though I think this game, V-Rally 2, handles traditional racing with multiple opponents on screen better, I'd say. Colin McRae Rally, its rally mode, its arcade mode, that is, always felt a bit odd. It felt a bit clunky to me, like maybe Codemasters are just trying to respond to what V-Rally was doing, or what other games of this sort were doing to begin with. I don't even know if the original Colin McRae Rally even had a, like, opponent versus opponent type mode, or maybe it never did. I honestly haven't played that one in a long time. I have played it, I just haven't played it in a while. I don't remember, but I'm pretty sure there wasn't that kind of mode in God, the pop-up is pretty bad though. But you know what? If it keeps the game running smooth, I'll fucking take most of the textures being super low res until you're right next to them. Speaking of which, I think the environment design is actually very strong. Certainly an improvement over the first game. Everything feels a lot richer and more realized. It doesn't have that same openness, I gotta admit, where you kind of feel like you got a sense for the width of the track. Here everything feels a little more enclosed, but it does feel nice and packed and polished, and everything feels like it feels in the pocket, if that makes sense. So that's more of a music thing, but you know, I get a sense as to where I am in a very good way, right? Because there were times when things felt a little bit loose in the previous games. But regardless, yeah, I mean, this is really fun. It's just kind of cool to see this different take, but back then that wasn't so different. Like, if they were to put out a rally game like this now, it would definitely be out of the ordinary, even though I'm sure there's like some smaller studios putting out similar kinds of games. I saw this one on Steam a while ago, which was like a straight Colin McRae ripoff, like Colin McRae 2 specifically. Like, it was just it was that with like low poly car models and low res textures, but it was still at a higher resolution because obviously it was like a recent PC game. It didn't look terrible or anything. It's just like, wow, it's like a boomer shooter, but for racing games. And I do love how the line always changes to finish when you get to the last lap. That's a pretty nice touch. And I think we're going to see you guys with the last thing we got to look at today. That's the Dreamcast version. And released in the year 2000, this is the Dreamcast version of V-Rally 2, called V-Rally 2 Expert Edition for some reason, despite actually having, I would say, the easiest to understand handling model. I mean, they're all quite simple, they're very arcade, but this one is just, they got it so right. This feels fantastic to play. Really, and look at how many camera angles you got, and best of all, first-person camera. Oh, that's fucking nice, dude. It's so smooth. Like, this is You know what? If it were the year 2000 and you just somehow had every game system, most people don't do that, but if you're one of those guys who had every game system, you would have thought that this beat the living life out of Colin McRae 2.0. I mean, yes, that game was also on PC, and so was this on PC. But again, if you were exclusively playing on consoles because Windows ME sucked or something, I guess. Yeah, no, this, look at it. It's buttery smooth. It runs amazing. The textures are great. There's like no pop-up at all. This honestly puts even the first party fucking Sega Rally 2 doesn't even look as good as this. And that game was actually made by Sega specifically for the console. You know what I mean? It's like, wow, this third party game is, I really am amazed by how smooth this plays. And what I find most fascinating about this whole journey is just the fact that they never fucking settled on a handling model. Which, you know, the Need for Speed games kind of did as well. But with those games, well, they were all so different. Like, Need for Speed 2 is nothing like Free. And Free is very little like High Stakes, especially on console. And High Stakes is absolutely nothing like Porsche Unleashed. But when it comes to rally games, they're typically more like updates. You know, just tiny little tweaks. So the fact that each game has such a distinctly different handling model, ranging from being, you know, it takes a little bit of getting used to, but a bit stiff, to absolute just a joy to drive. Like, this is amazing. I think I'm still going to have this irrational preference for the N64 version, but this is objectively the best way to play V-Rally on, even, honestly, this is one of the best rally games of this time. You gotta remember, this was before Colin McRae Free came out for the PS2. I'm not sure about Richard Burns Rally, but that was on the Xbox, which came out in 2001, meaning that it was on the Xbox, right? Or was it on PC exclusive? Oh god, I don't remember. And you know what else I do remember, though, that I swear used to happen? Because I was playing this game the other day, and... oh shit, hold on, make sure to, yeah, make your upgrades, your, what'd you call it, repairs to your car. I could have sworn that your car gets awkwardly reset back to the start. You know what? That might have been the time trial mode. I'm just realizing that might have been the time trial mode that I was thinking of, which would awkwardly plop your car back at the start of the track. Here, as you can see, it just ends normally. Also, just notice, look, there's indicators for your damage, which are scarily similar to the ones from Top Gear Rally 2 on the PlayStation, on the N64. Interesting. Well, no, okay, I doubt that there's any... It was made by totally different people. Also, you know what I noticed is kind of weird? The fact that if you go into sound options, there's music, and one of the options in the menu, in the main menu, was race music, which I don't have disabled, yet there is no race music. Could that just be because of Flycast? Well, no, because this game was released during the actual Dreamcast lifespan. Because I've had some issues with some more recent homebrew titles when it comes to getting sound working, like proper like music and stuff playing, but I've never had that issue with, you know, licensed actual Sega Dreamcast games from the time period, right? It's a little bit weird. But regardless, so this was quite a journey. We, you know, sometimes you notice these things where it's like, oh, it's the devolution of a series. Well, no, at this point, I mean, like, in terms of going from 1997 to 2000, this was definitely an evolution, because now you're playing just such an enhanced and improved, polished version of what was already a very good game. I still think that V-Rally on the original PlayStation, the original game, is very solid still. And V-Rally 2 on PS1 is still a great option. Even the N64 one, if you play in the first-person camera and you don't use the opponents, okay, that game has some performance issues, but you know what, I don't agree with N64 Glenn Plant, though, that it's not a looker. I think it's a good-looking game, it just runs like shit. This looks amazing, and I love how there's just people that, like, try not to get run over. That's so cute. Although it's funny how some of them are polygons, others are sprites. But yeah, like, everything about this is just so right. Now, maybe I shouldn't be using this camera, because you can clearly see that the game is culling a bunch of objects, and it doesn't want you to see that, so I'm gonna strip it back down to this camera angle. But regardless, if I were to say which one you should spend your time with, because how old these games are, I don't even know if you can buy them anymore. So I'd really say it's just a matter of time rather than a matter of spending your money on this. But whichever one you should spend your time on, oh yeah, absolutely V-Rally for V-Rally 2 for Dreamcast. If you really want more, then there's other options, of course. Although, as far as like just the most polished and best playing one goes, yeah, absolutely go for Dreamcast, right? But at the same time, though, Colin McRae Rally 2.0, the Colin McRae Rally 3, is a very strong 6th-gen competitor as well. That game has its own thing going on, though it's very different stylistically, although I do feel like this is the closest V-Rally gets to being more like Colin McRae, especially because this was around the time of Colin McRae Rally 2.0, so... Wow, this is so awkward, because I feel like there's supposed to be music, but there isn't any. Regardless, that was the 4 1990s to Y2K era V-Rally games by Eden Games, and they're absolutely fantastic. Even, okay, the N64 one was a little bit... I hate to admit it, but it has issues, obviously, but it's still, like, fun enough, I guess, especially if you're looking for something a little more serious versus something like Top Gear Rally, though that is a very fun arcade rally game, which I've already covered on the show. But regardless, this has been Focus on B, the video series, where to spend, this was definitely more than 20 minutes, but I guess in this case 30 or so minutes, talking about quite a few games that I've got some thoughts on. And this was V-Rally. Years, various, systems, various, as you just saw. See you guys next time.